be an asymptote.
All right. Okay, so now this is going to be the review. This is part 2. Okay, the short answer type thing. All right, so first thing, what do I have to try and find first? Amplitude. So my amp is going to be what? 1. What's the next thing I find? Period. So period is? 2 pi. Because this has no change to it, right? The x, there's no front number in front of the x. So that's going to be just 2 pi. All right. Next thing is, what do I find?
Argument?
Let's do phase shift.
Yeah, phase shift. There we go.
Phase shift. What's phase shift going to be? I heard it. Negative pi over 3, because it's always opposite that. Let's do our argument. So what does CSC start at? 0. Less than or equal to x plus less than or equal to 2 pi, right? Rah, that's a pi. Okay, what do I do to all sides of this now? Subtract. There we go. So I get negative pi over 3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to. Okay, how do we do this one? To do it on our calculator. Let's see if I can do this here. So, watch. So, if I want to do the fractions on my calculator, I would just do the what? I would do 2. Right? No, not the pi's, remember? 2 minus 1/3. So, instead of the pi, use a 1, right? So 1 over 3, 5 pi over 3, right? So 5 pi over 3. Okay, so now this thing I'm going to label my start and end. What am I still missing? Increment. Got to do the increment, right? So that's going to be my period, which is 2 pi divided by 4, right? It's always 4. Okay, it's always my period divided by 4. So it's going to give me pi over 2. So that's my increment. And so the next, I'm going to do all my steps down here. So 1 times my increment, which is pi over 2, plus, what am I adding it to? I'm going to add it to my start, right? Yes. I'm going to add it to my start. So I add negative pi over 3. What's that give me? Let's see. I'll do it on the calculator. So 1 parentheses. So it's 1 over 2. Plus my negative 1 over 3. Okay, so if I want to do all the fractions in the calculator, I can. So right here, we get pi over 6. So don't forget, it's in terms of pi. So that's pi over 6. Now, to do my second step,
negative pi over 6.
Now watch this. So I could just go up and then just change my step. Change this to a 2. There we go. So make sure you write out all your work, because if not, you're not going to get credit. Equals 2 pi over 3. All right, so step 3 is going to be pi over 2 plus negative pi over 3. What do I get? 7 pi over 6?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me verify it. Not that I'm not believing you people. I just want to make sure I do it for the video. Step 3. So there it is, 7 pi over 6. And step 4, why do we have to do step 4? We're checking to make sure it is my end, right?
5 power 3.
You put 5.
I meant to do that just to see if you guys pay attention. Good job, you guys. Good job. You know what? Good looking out right there. 5 pi over 3. There we go. And so this one is supposed to match my end, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm going to tell you guys for my grading of this, all this work is worth 3 points. The graph part is worth 2. So every question is worth 5 points.
Okay.
So right here, this is where a lot of people make a mistake. Where am I going to start at? On the left side with my negative pi over 3. I'm going to start with my start. A lot of people screwed that one up.
Oh, yeah.
So they usually start at the first step instead of at the start. So the next one's going to be positive pi over 6. Next one's going to be 2 pi over 3. Next one's going to be 7 pi over 6. My last one's going to be 5 pi over 3. All right, so now that we have all that right there, let's do the calculator. So scratch pad in my function. So I'm going to put my CSC of x plus pi over 3. Hit enter. There we go. So it's going to look something like this. It's going to look something like this. So now, this is not the part that I'm looking for. I want my vars, right? So vars. And so we plug in what? Negative pi over 3. We plug in our start. So negative pi over 3. Undefined. So if it's undefined, what do I put there? Asymptote, right? Asymptote. So it's a dotted line. You guys don't have to, it doesn't have to be pretty. I do the colors so you guys can see it for your benefit. All right, so I have an asymptote there. Now, what are we going to get for pi over 6?
1.
Make sure you label your graph too, please. 5 over 6, I get 1. So right here, I go up here, got a dot right there. Next one, 2 pi over 3. Undefined. So if it's undefined, that gets another line. My asymptote here. Seven pi over 6. -1. So I put a dot right here at -1. And 5 pi over 3. Undefined. So there's another asymptote there. Okay, so now with this right here, so where is this one going to go? It goes up, right? It goes up. So this is a parabola going up, something like that. This is also a parabola going down. So it looks something like that, right? Yep. So, and that's what I'm looking for there. Make sure it's all labeled. This is where 2 points here. All the label your y values and everything that you have there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this next one.
This midline.
Midline?
It says midline.
Where does it say midline?
It says showing period midline.
Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. That was the V shift.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, so that actually has to do with this thing right here, whatever that thing is. I don't even know. If. Yeah. All right, so what's the first thing I do?
Amplitude.
What's my amplitude?
2/5.
Period. What's our normal period for this one?
6 pi.
Okay, so my normal period is pi, right?
Yeah.
So it's pi equals
Oh,
3x, right?
Yes.
So what would I do?
pi over 3.
Divide by 3. So my period is,
5/3.
there we go, pi over 3. Don't forget, tangent, cotangent all starts off at pi. Everything else is 2 pi, right?
Yes.
Do I have phase shift?
No.
No phase shift. Is there V shift?
No.
No. So what do I go to next?
Your interval.
Argument. Argument. Where does tangent, what's tangent argument?
It's the
Negative pi over 2 less than equal to 3x less than equal to positive pi over 2. There we go. I heard you. I knew. I knew what you mean. Okay, so what do we have to do from here?
3x.
Divide by.
3.
So if I'm dividing by 3, what am I doing over here? Multiplying by
It's reciprocal.
1/3, which is the reciprocal, right?
Yeah.
That's a 3. So multiply both sides by 1/3. So dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3.
Pi over 6.
So we have a negative pi over 6 less than equal to x less than equal to positive pi over 6. What goes next?
Interval.
Interval. Interval, increment, whatever I keep calling it. I keep forgetting. All right. So it's going to be my period, which is pi over 3 divided by 4 over 1, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be pi over 3 times
Pi over 12.
1 over 4, pi over 12. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's always the period divided by 4. All right, so next one is going to be my steps, right?
Yes.
So let's take a look at what my steps going to be. My steps would be right here. So 1 times pi over 12 plus, what do I add it to?
The start.
Yeah, we didn't label the start, did we? So here's the start, and this is the end. Negative pi over 6, which gives me negative pi over 12. Let's do the math on that one, because it got quiet real quick.
Please.
All right, so it's going to be in this. So it's going to be 1 times 1 over 12 plus negative 1 over 6. Right? There we go. So we get right here. That's going to give me a negative pi over 12, right? There we go. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for the rest. So it's going to be 2 times pi over 12 plus negative pi over 6 equals 0. Let me show you the work on that one. So we get 0 there. The next step would be 3 pi over 12 plus negative pi over 6 equals, what do we get?
Pi over 6.
Pi over 6. You guys don't sound very convincing on that one.
5/6.
So is it pi over 6? It's pi over 12. Thank you.
Which one are we on?
That was step 3. Step 3.
Oh, I think it's about 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Step 4 then. Pi over 12 plus negative pi over 6,
Pi over 6.
positive pi over 6. There we go.
Okay. On any
All right, now the issue we're going to have here is, for our graph, okay, my start is a negative, so that needs to be on the left side. There we go. Okay, so please don't mess that up. Pi over 6, negative pi over 12. Next one's going to be 0. Positive pi over 12 and positive pi over 6.
There's only 4, right? Sorry. It's just,
There's always 5.
no, I just guessed. Like,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 is one of my numbers.
oh, okay. Good too.
All right. Now that I have that, it needs to go into the graph, right?
Yeah.
So, tab, go up. 2/5. Tan of 3x. Okay, bunch of lines. That's not what I'm looking for though. I want my y vars. And so I start plugging in my points, which would be my start, negative pi over 6. Undefined, so what does that give me? Asymptote. Okay, since this is tangent, where's my other asymptote supposed to be at?
The other
It should be over at pi over 6, right? So let's check it. There we go. All right, so our next one. So what do we get for negative pi over 12? Go ahead. You guys say it. Negative 0.4, right?
Yeah.
Is it, what's 0.4 as a fraction? Say 2/5. Yeah, that's what my amplitude is. 0.4 is 2/5. Okay, so now for this one, it would be a point here. Now, what do we get at 0?
Zero.
We get 0, don't we? 0, we get 0. And at pi over 12? So it's a positive 0.4, right? So that means that's going to be a positive 2/5. So I get right here. So, something like this. Like that. Then you get a nice pretty graph that looks something like this. There you go. Just totally disregard all the crappy stuff I had on there. So your graph should look like this.
So if the drawing's like a little crappy, doesn't matter.
No, crappy graphs I don't have a problem with. I just want all the data.
Yeah, so yeah.
But if you make it crappy so it's hard for me to grade, I'm going to grade angry.
But you do get that right.
I don't know. I can't read that from here.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the backside.
Okay, so. That's not that arrows, do they?
No, they don't have to have arrows. All right, so for right here, find the period and the phase shift. So period for sine starts off at what?
2 pi
So it's going to be 2 pi
equals 3x.
equals 3x divided by 3.
It'd be 2 pi over 3.
So my period, 2 pi over 3. Make sure you label your work, okay? Now, Jimmy, what's the next thing I have to find? Say phase shift. Phase shift. So kind of like doing the warm-up. So what do we do from here? Factor. So what am I factoring out? A 3. So it's 3 parentheses x plus pi over 6 divided by 3 over 1, right? So I have to factor it out. So it's going to give me pi pi over 6 times 1 over 3, which gives me pi over 18. Yeah.
Yeah.
Way off. All right, so my phase shift is, Vanessa, what's my phase shift?
Negative pi over 8.
Awesome. Good job. So I knew that you would get it right.
This is the opposite.
Yes, it's always the opposite from on the inside. So make sure you label it. All right, so now this next one says find the phase shift and vertical. Vertical translation is also the V shift. What's the V shift here?
No. Yeah.
What is it? -1. -1. That's a -1, isn't it? Since it's a -1, my V shift is -1. If it said +1, it would be +1, right? So, phase shift again. Phase shift. So what do I have to do to get the phase shift? Factor out what? Quantity x plus pi over 2 divided by 1/2. Divide by 1/2 because we're factoring out the 1/2. So it's going to be pi over 2 times 2 over 1, which gives me pi. So my phase shift, -pi. Make sense? Questions, concerns, complaints? Yes. Yeah, because it says -1 right there. And sometimes you'll see it out front. Sometimes you'll see it in the back.
Oh, okay, so it'd be front or back.
Yeah, front or back. Okay.